Imagine growing up in the 1950s in the American South, where, because of your skin color, you are always the second-class citizen, where people tell you that you will never achieve anything. And now imagine that you manage to escape that place, make it all the way to California, to the legendary Gold's Gym, and become one of the most respected bodybuilders of your era. Today's story is about Robby Robinson, nicknamed the Black Prince, a man who broke through prejudice, fought for his place, and forever changed the world of bodybuilding. Robby Robinson was born on May 24, 1946, in the small town of Damascus in the state of Georgia, but he grew up mainly in Tallahassee, Florida. He came from a very large family. He was one of 14 children. His mother was illiterate, and his father worked as a bootlegger, smuggling illegal alcohol before he left the family. So Robby spent his childhood in very poor conditions in the American South of the 1950s, in an area marked by racial segregation and tension. He later remarked that growing up as a black boy in Georgia and Florida during the era of segregation meant starting life with the odds heavily stacked against you. Yet he also remembers that within the poor black community where he grew up, he was, somewhat paradoxically, shielded from direct racist attacks when he was little. He went to an almost entirely black school and heard a racial slur aimed at black people for the very first time only after he left Florida in 1975. The social reality of the segregated South, however, meant that black families lived separately and often distrusted institutions controlled by white people. Robby's parents, for example, refused to keep their savings in a bank. They hid money in the walls of the house or buried it in the yard. The Robinson family survived any way they could. In addition to small-scale farming, they also sold homemade moonshine, a strong alcohol distilled from fermented peaches, a kind of fruit liquor people called buck. These practices were not legal, but for a large family pushed to the edge of society, they were necessary for survival. Robby grew up in a community that was largely cut off from the surrounding white world, and from a young age he had to rely mostly on himself. As a small boy, he had a speech impediment. He stuttered, which especially in first grade made him the target of mockery from other kids. His mother insisted on proper manners and appearance, so every day he went to school in a formal suit with a bow tie. That made him stand out even more and gave bullies another reason to pick on him. Robby recalls that instead of reacting with anger, he turned inward, focused on his own growth and on his studies. Even as a child, he felt that he wanted something more from life, and that he would never reach it if he let himself get dragged down by his surroundings. He had the sense that in many ways he was ahead of his peers, and from early on a quiet inner discipline began to grow in him. At school, he eventually discovered an area where he could truly shine: sports. He was naturally strong, robust, and athletically gifted, which showed during his high school years in Tallahassee. He attended a black high school that, surprisingly, had a very solid sports program. Thanks to his work ethic and natural ability, he became a star of the school's American football team and the track and field squad, especially in sprints and other explosive events by the time he was around 15. Sports gave him self-confidence. While other boys his age spent most of their time chasing girls, Robby was completely absorbed by his dream of becoming a sports star. He trained with maximum commitment and later admitted that during all of high school he never had a girlfriend, because he poured all his energy into training and self-improvement. At first, his classmates did not understand his obsession with working out. When he walked home from school with no shirt on, proudly showing off his developing muscles, he sometimes heard mocking remarks that he was girly or strange. Robby did not let it bother him. He was proud of his body and of the progress he made through hard training. That stubbornness and confidence already set him apart from others at a very young age. First contact with exercise and the discovery of bodybuilding. His passion for sports and fitness was sparked already in childhood. At the age of 12, Robby saw Jack LaLanne on television, the famous pioneer of fitness and healthy exercise in the 1950s. Lalonde's exercises and incredible vitality immediately inspired young Robinson. He began to follow the TV workouts every day, doing simple gymnastics, push-ups, squats, and other bodyweight movements. After coming home from school, he would regularly lock himself in his room, repeat Lalonde's routine, and even pose in front of the mirror so he could see the first signs of muscle appearing on his body. Later, he explained that this was not about vanity. He watched in the mirror the transformation he was carving into his own body through hard work, and he saw it as shaping a gift from God, his own physique. Already at this time, he discovered a deep passion for strength training and self-betterment. Robby Robinson, as a young American football player in Tallahassee in the 1960s, his outstanding performances on the track and on the field gave him confidence and taught him discipline. The intensive training at home soon brought results. Robby was getting stronger and improving rapidly in all sports. He excelled in running, and his muscular frame was ideal for American football. On his high school team, he became one of the key players. During these teenage years, he also began to look more and more toward the world of bodybuilding. A big turning point came when, as a teenager, he discovered the magazine Muscle Builder. He was fascinated by the photos of ripped, muscular men and by the lifestyle of the champions. He recalls that the decisive impulse came when he saw a cartoon illustration of Joe Weider, the founding father of modern bodybuilding, with a beautiful woman sitting on each of his shoulders. At that moment, young Robby told himself that bodybuilding was the path he wanted to follow. Besides the desire for admiration, he was driven by something else. He realized he might have an exceptional talent for bodybuilding. During his strength training, he noticed that his body responded unusually well. He gained muscle mass easily and stayed lean at the same time. This discovery finally convinced him to devote himself seriously to weight training and to try his first bodybuilding contest. Robby Robinson, as a young American football player in Tallahassee in the 1960s, his outstanding performances on the track and on the field gave him confidence and taught him discipline. The intensive training at home soon brought results. Robby was getting stronger and improving rapidly in all sports. He excelled in running, and his muscular frame was ideal for American football. On his high school team, he became one of the key players. During these teenage years, he also began to look more and more toward the world of bodybuilding. A big turning point came when, as a teenager, he discovered the magazine Muscle Builder. He was fascinated by the photos of ripped, muscular men and by the lifestyle of the champions. He recalls that the decisive impulse came when he saw a cartoon illustration of Joe Weider, the founding father of modern bodybuilding, with a beautiful woman sitting on each of his shoulders. At that moment, young Robby told himself that bodybuilding was the path he wanted to follow. Besides the desire for admiration, he was driven by something else. He realized he might have an exceptional talent for bodybuilding. During his strength training, he noticed that his body responded unusually well. He gained muscle mass easily and stayed lean at the same time. This discovery finally convinced him to devote himself seriously to weight training and to try his first bodybuilding contest. It was the early 1960s, and for a young black man in the American South, it was not easy to find a gym that would accept him. So in the beginning, Robby trained at home and outside. He used whatever he could find and built strength by carrying heavy logs, bags, and makeshift weights. From the age of 12, he exercised daily using Jack LaLande's routines. But for true bodybuilding, he needed real weights. In the end, he literally built his own. At an old sawmill, he collected pieces of metal scrap and turned them into homemade barbells and dumbbells. This improvised home gym became his sanctuary. He trained there with incredible intensity and creativity. Even though he had no coach, no guidance, and almost no equipment, his inspiration came from bodybuilding magazines and TV shows. His childhood hero was Jack LaLande, And from the world of iron, he looked up to Joe Weider and the champions around him. Robby also admired black sports stars of the time, such as sprinter Bob Hayes and legendary bodybuilder Sergio Oliva, a Cuban-born athlete with dark skin who won the Mr. Olympia title 3 times in a row from 1967 to 1969. Oliva's success was proof for Robby that a black athlete could reach the very top of the bodybuilding world, despite the prejudices of that era. Robby's character during these formative years was marked by tremendous determination. He later said that he always relied on self-discipline, resolve, and confidence, supported, of course, by good genetic potential. These traits took root in him from a young age. He took training and sports very seriously and organized his daily life around them. People around him may not have understood this stubborn focus, but it was exactly this hard work and concentration that allowed him to overcome the harsh start he had in life. Robby never had any professional coaches. He learned by trial and error and by listening to his own body. As he himself put it, he learned to tune in to his muscle fibers and feel how to train as effectively as possible. This intuitive approach to training, combined with relentless effort, soon brought him his first successes, amateur contests, and first victories. Thanks to his sports background and consistent training, by the end of the 1960s, Robinson had built such a quality physique that he could step onto the bodybuilding stage. At that time, he was studying at Florida A&M University and competed for the university team in track and field and football. But bodybuilding was pulling him in more and more. He entered his first bodybuilding contest in 1969 at an amateur show in Gainesville, Florida. He was in his early 20s and still relatively new to the bodybuilding scene, yet he immediately stood out. He finished 5th overall, but won most of the individual awards for best body parts. His arms, legs, back, and other muscle groups were judged superior. During the awards ceremony, the winner of the show, Ellington Darden, a seasoned competitor on the Southern Amateur Circuit, lifted Robby's hand in the air in front of everyone as a sign of respect. That gesture enormously boosted Robby's self-confidence. In the audience, however, racist insults were shouted at the black competitor, and Darden's chivalrous act helped at least partly silence them. Robby later said that this mixture of recognition from a rival and his first direct experience of racism at a contest strengthened his resolve not to give up and to keep working. After this promising start came a whole series of other amateur shows. At the end of the 1960s and early 1970s, Robby drove to every competition he could find in Florida and across the American South, often competing every single weekend. He entered shows wherever they would let him, including states like Alabama and Virginia, and gradually became a familiar face on the amateur circuit. His muscles and symmetry caught the eye of judges and fans alike, even though he also ran into prejudice. He recalls that sometimes promoters in southern states did not want to let him on stage at all because of his skin color, or made it clear that he did not belong among the white bodybuilders. Robby refused to let this stop him. On the contrary, he treated every such barrier as extra motivation. He kept competing tirelessly, and his results kept improving. In 1 year at the Mr. Southern States Championship in Florida, he completely dominated the show. He took the overall title and won every single special award for best body parts. His dominance was so obvious that when he wanted to sign up again the following year, the organizers sent him a letter asking if he could give the others a chance and skip the contest. He took it as a compliment and proof that he had surpassed the rest of the field. Around this time, at the turn of the 1960s and 1970s, Robby also took a 2-year break from competition because of military service. In 1969, he was drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War. Fortunately, he was not sent to the front lines. He served in a unit stationed in the Dominican Republic, and after 2 years, he returned home determined to continue his bodybuilding career. By 1975, he had stepped on stage an incredible number of times, It is said that he competed in more than 300 amateur contests before he ever entered the professional ranks. All of this experience perfectly prepared him for the big stage. His outstanding performances did not escape the attention of legendary Joe Weider, the powerful promoter of bodybuilding. Weider sent Robby an invitation to the Mecca of bodybuilding, the famous Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, California, where the elite of that era trained. For 27-year-old Robby, this meant a huge life change. He left his native Florida, including a stable job and family, and bet everything on one card: the dream of becoming a top bodybuilder. The gamble paid off. The year 1975 became an almost fairy tale beginning to his professional career. In his very first season among the pros, he won 3 major titles in a row: IFBB Mr. America, IFBB Mr. World, and IFBB Mr. Universe. Such a debut was unprecedented and earned him the nickname the Black Prince. Robby showed the world that despite a tough start and countless obstacles, he could reach the top. His journey from a poor boy from the racist South to a bodybuilding legend became an inspiration for generations of athletes. Robby's career then continued for another 2 decades full of success. Although he never won the Mr. Olympia title, the highest trophy in professional bodybuilding, he took dozens of victories at contests all around the world. In the 1990s, he became the first ever winner of Masters Olympia, the world championship for veteran bodybuilders over 50. His legacy, however, rests above all on his story of unbreakable will, how a boy raised in segregation and poverty became a champion who pushed the boundaries of what seemed possible. In his memories, Robby emphasizes that the key for him was inner motivation and perseverance. He refused to be poisoned by prejudice or setbacks and always focused on his goals. This mindset, forged already in childhood, carried him through his whole career and continues to inspire those who want to follow in his footsteps. In 1975, Robby Robinson received a personal letter from Joe Weider inviting him to train at the famous Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, California. For 29-year-old Robby, who had spent his life up to that point in the American South, working a steady job as a supervisor at a newspaper and supporting a family, it was a call of destiny. He left everything behind and headed to California to chase his dream. Weider, the guru of world bodybuilding, was offering him a chance to become part of the blossoming bodybuilding empire on Muscle Beach. But when Robby arrived in Los Angeles, reality hit him hard. Nobody was waiting for him at the airport. Without hesitation, he set off on foot from the airport, about 9 miles away, straight to Gold's Gym. He had no place to stay and almost no money. For the first weeks, he secretly slept on the gym's roof with nothing but a blanket and a pillow. Robby remembers this period as an adventure. He was ready to sacrifice anything as long as he could train every day and follow his dream. Very soon, he also discovered the darker side of the promised land. In the gym, he overheard comments such as, "Black guys don't get contracts here anyway." These prejudices did not break him. They fueled his determination to prove everyone wrong through his performance. When Robinson walked into Gold's Gym for the first time, he suddenly found himself face to face with his idols. All around him trained giants he had known only from magazines. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbu, Ken Waller, Denny Gable, Bob Birdsong, and other legends of the era. I could hardly bring myself to start lifting. I just stood there in awe, all my heroes in one room. Robby recalled his first impression. Soon the newcomer was introduced to Arnold, Franco, and other members of the Gold's Gym family, and was allowed to join their training sessions. The atmosphere in the gym was relaxed and friendly, yet intensely competitive. Everyone there lived and breathed bodybuilding. Robby describes how a real sense of brotherhood existed among the top bodybuilders. They trained together, pushed each other to better performances, and at the same time had fun. Rivalry drove them forward, but there was always mutual respect and camaraderie. This group of elite athletes drew Robby straight into the golden era of bodybuilding, where every day was a chance to learn from the best. In the beginning, however, he still had to prove his worth among the seasoned champions. The manager of Gold's Gym was Ken Waller, himself a top bodybuilder, and he did not want the newcomer to be just another admirer watching from the corner. From Robby's ripped physique, he sensed that this young man had come to train, not just to stare. So Waller tested him on the very first day. He led him to a pair of huge 150-pound dumbbells and told him to perform 10 reps of the dumbbell bench press. Those were weights Robby had never held in his hands before, but he gave everything he had. One rep after another, he fought his way to the full set of 10. Later, he shook his head, wondering how he had even managed it. But in that moment, adrenaline and his burning desire to be one of them unlocked almost superhuman strength. By that feat, he earned respect. Waller admitted that Robby truly deserved to be among the golden boys of Gold's Gym. Symbolically, Robinson had passed his initiation ritual, and the doors to training alongside the most famous bodybuilders on the planet were now open. Role models, influences, and help in the beginning. Robby Robinson grew up in the poor environment of the segregated American South, but from childhood he found passion in lifting weights. His first inspiration was TV fitness pioneer Jack LaLanne, whose shows pushed 12-year-old Robby to start exercising. Another strong impulse came a few years later from bodybuilding magazines. Young Robby was captivated by pictures of muscular men around Joe Weider, surrounded by beautiful women, and he decided he wanted to become that kind of bodybuilder. Joe Weider, co-founder of the IFBB and publisher of Muscle Builder, thus indirectly guided Robinson toward bodybuilding. And in the end, it was again Weider who gave him the chance to shine when he invited him to California in 1975. At Gold's Gym, Robby then had the chance to learn directly from the elite competitors of that time. Among his biggest role models were Arnold Schwarzenegger, the aesthetic Frank Zane, the powerful Franco Columbu, and also fellow champions like Denny Gable and Bob Birdsong, who were then at their peak. Robby quickly became part of their training group, and many of them gladly helped him with advice. He recalls that at first he mostly listened quietly to the veterans' discussions about training and nutrition and carefully watched their methods. During shared meals or while they were sunbathing on the beach, he absorbed how Arnold, Franco, Ken Waller, and others planned their diets and fine-tuned their contest shape. For example, he realized how important precise control of carbohydrates was before a show. This was something completely new to him when he first heard the experienced guys say that even an ordinary baked potato could be too heavy and flood the muscles with unnecessary water. Through this informal mentoring, his colleagues helped him quickly understand the advanced training and diet strategies of top-level bodybuilding. Of course, Joe Weider again played an enormous role in his career, this time as a promoter. Weider recognized Robby's potential to become a star and gave him not only a contract but also a unique nickname that soon made Robinson famous worldwide. How the nickname the Black Prince was born. At Mr. World 1975, one of his first big contests as a member of the Weider team, Robby showed phenomenal shape. He won his weight class, took the overall title, and received the award for Best Muscular Development, essentially Most Muscular Man. He even defeated Roger Callard, who at that time was a kind of Weider favorite. Joe Weider was thrilled. Right after the contest, he ran backstage to Robby and declared that from that moment on, he would carry the title the Black Prince. At that time, only a handful of great champions had famous nicknames. Arnold was the Austrian Oak, Sergio Oliva was the Myth, Franco Columbu was known as the Sardinian Strongman, and so on. By giving Robby his own powerful moniker, Weider placed him into this Hall of Fame and signaled that he saw in Robinson a new prince of bodybuilding who could follow after the retiring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Robby later understood Weider's move also as clever marketing. In a time when bodybuilding was still not a mainstream sport, it needed new, charismatic heroes. With his impressive muscular physique, reminiscent of Sergio Oliva, but with a very masculine face and extraordinary arm development, Robby perfectly fit the role. The Black Prince became his immortal nickname, and Robby accepted it proudly as a promise that he would live up to the expectations Vider had for him. First professional contests and early success. Robby Robinson's entry into the professional scene ranks among the most spectacular in bodybuilding history. In 1975, his very first season as a pro, he captured the Triple Crown of 3 major titles: IFBB Mr. America, IFBB Mr. World, and IFBB Mr. Universe. At all of these events, he won his middleweight division and also took the overall victory across all weight classes, which brought him enormous attention. In the span of a single year, he rose from a relatively unknown newcomer to an international champion. His years of grinding on the amateur circuit, he estimated he had competed in more than 300 amateur shows before 1975, paid off, and he suddenly stood among the biggest stars of the sport. He followed his breakthrough year with an equally impressive 1976 season. He won another prestigious title, IFBB Mr. International, and claimed the Mr. Universe crown once again, this time as a fully fledged professional. These results proved that his earlier victories were no fluke. He was clearly capable of dominating world-level competition. It is no surprise that people began to speak of him as a possible successor to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had retired in 1975. In the following years, Robby indeed attacked the highest prize of all, the Mr. Olympia title. In his Mr. Olympia debut in 1977, he won the category over 200 pounds, but the overall title went to Frank Zane. The same thing happened again in 1978. Even though he never captured the absolute Mr. Olympia crown, his results at the end of the 1970s were formidable. He won every other professional contest he entered. Robby earned a reputation as one of the most dominant bodybuilders of that era, consistently placing at the top and defeating most of his rivals. His extraordinary consistency, combined with his aesthetic muscularity, brought him praise from fans and experts. In 1977, magazines even dubbed him Mr. Lifestyle because he embodied the bodybuilding lifestyle 24 hours a day, a label reinforced by his intense approach to training and nutrition. By the late 1970s, Robby Robinson was well on his way to building a legendary career. And it all started with that incredible run in 1975 and 1976. Robinson's training philosophy. Robby's approach to training reflected the old-school era he came from and in many ways set him apart from others. Over time, he refined his philosophy and became known for several key principles. He relied on basic exercises and free weights. He preferred tried-and-true compound movements. He loved the clean and press, heavy deadlifts, bent-over rows with a T-bar, and deep squats. In short, exercises that build strength and a solid muscular foundation. He trained on machines only minimally, believing that honest work with barbells and dumbbells gave the muscles the best stimulus. This traditional approach paid off. Over decades of training, he avoided serious injuries, which he attributed to proper technique and respect for the basic lifts. He alternated heavy and light weeks. Robinson used an unusual 2-week cycle. 1 week he trained with maximum weights and a very structured plan. He did lower reps, focused on pure strength, and paused in the contracted position to make the muscles work as hard as possible. The following week he switched to a lighter style. He significantly changed the selection of exercises, often used supersets or giant sets, and focused mainly on intense muscle pump from many different angles. This principle of variable loading kept his body in constant shock and prevented stagnation. As he said, variety is the key, but always within the limits of what supports your specific goal. He emphasized the connection between mind and muscle. For Robby, the goal was never to mechanically move through a prescribed number of sets. He insisted that every repetition had to be felt in the muscle to get the maximum benefit. You have to be in contact with your muscle fibers, in contact with the weight. Like in a relationship, you really have to feel it. he explained. This emphasis on perfect technique and mind-muscle connection distinguished him from some competitors who chased numbers on the bar at the expense of proper form. Thanks to this focus, he could better direct the growth of his muscles. It is one of the reasons he became famous for his phenomenal biceps with their sharp peak and for his narrow waist, which were among his trademark features. He lived bodybuilding 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Robinson's dedication and discipline were evident far beyond the gym. He did not allow himself to switch off from his regimen. He followed his diet, training and rest with strict regularity all year round. 90% of success is the right timing and composition of nutrients. Bodybuilding is about repeating the right things over and over, day after day, all year long, he said. He woke up early to train and never skipped a meal or supplement that was part of his plan. Even in the off-season, he kept himself in excellent shape, while many of his rivals relaxed and put on extra weight. Thanks to this, he earned the nickname Mr. Lifestyle, because bodybuilding for him was not just a sport, but a way of life. He belonged to a generation that believed in hard work and self-discipline. And he was one of its purest examples. In summary, Robby Robinson managed to break through in the early phase of his career, thanks to a combination of tremendous talent and relentless will. He went to California with a vision and risked everything to become a champion. Circumstances gave him unforgettable experiences, from sleeping on the roof of Gold's Gym to training side by side with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He learned from the best, but at the same time carved his own path, which he crowned with rapid victories at the biggest contests in the world. His nickname, the Black Prince, was born in those very years and symbolized the arrival of a new royal dynasty in bodybuilding. Robby Robinson's story of his early career remains inspiring to this day. It shows that with determination, hard training, and passion, you can overcome prejudice and become an icon of the golden era of bodybuilding.